Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Blame It on Marketing. We have our lovely, lovely guest today with us. His name is Jaime De Freitas. He's known for being very zesty, but we will let you introduce yourself, Jamie. So here's the floor.
Thank you for the zesty comment as always. So my name is Jaime De Freitas, Senior Vice President of Sales at Advocitude Travel. Always been in sales. I don't know anything different. And I think I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and taken part in all of those bits as well. But I had the privilege of working with Emma and Ruta for a couple of years ago.
Yes, I can't believe it's been so long.
Lucky man.
So today's episode is named something on the lines of marketing should report into sales. Of course, each episode is a ridiculous thing we have heard being told to marketing, and this one comes up quite a lot. So we thought we'd get an actual salesperson to come on and chat to us about it and what their experience has been like. So I guess, Jamie, could you tell us a little bit more about your experience kind of working with marketing and in general your career and what that has been like?
Yeah, sure. So I think, I don't know if it was just me who was naive or if this is the experience of most people, but you don't really know when you step into sales, what you've stepped into, and what you definitely don't know is the influence and importance of marketing collaborating with you. So I think, just for everyone's background, my first sales job was selling debt management, very much cold calling. I then went to double glazing sales, and that was arguably even worse. I definitely learned what sort of salesperson I wanted to be or not to be. So that was valuable experience. But I never thought, oh, how is marketing, how is marketing supporting me? And actually the reality was, certainly with the double glazing, most of the meetings I had were inbound leads from the website. So actually it was at the heart of most of my opportunities without me even understanding that. Anyway, moving forward to what I describe always as more ethical roles. I've predominantly been working working with non-profit customers and prospects for 7-8 years now. And over that time, I've started to understand the importance. And actually working with you guys was probably when I really realised exactly how the two teams should fit together. And I think when I was thinking about this podcast, I actually thought about a Harry Potter reference. So the prophecy in Harry Potter, and I know Ruth will love this, is that with Harry Potter and Voldemort, neither can live while the other survives. And actually, it's sort of sales and marketing is the opposite of that. Neither can really maximize the business's potential without the other. And if I can maybe talk about Clearview, where we worked together, I walked into a business that had somehow created this huge customer base without doing any real outbound sales, and it was all generated from the amazing work that you did. And that was a big wow. Because I spent the last sort of 7-8 years having to do most of the or doing most of the legwork and mainly being an outbound and generating new business in that way. And actually, I think where we got to a year later is that you continue to do that brilliant stuff, and then we complemented that with some outbound pipeline as well. And then suddenly you've got the best of both worlds. But it's not just about that part and that pipeline. That for me was like the big bang moment in terms of how marketing enables sales, and then how sales adds to marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess like one of the things we're interested in, because obviously we hear this a lot, especially like we joke about the whole title of the podcast being that marketing should report into sales, but I think more and more that is sadly becoming a reality for quite a lot of our marketing colleagues out there in the world. And I guess, is it because, I mean, Jamie, I'm just asking you, like, you're the voice of all salespeople everywhere, but is it potentially an issue with the perception of marketing within like certain different types of organizations, that we're kind of like a service department, or that we're like a back office department rather than a kind of like revenue generating department? What's your experience been of that?
It's definitely partly that. And if you're speaking to Jamie 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been qualified to talk about this at all because that was exactly my perception. But I think it's also just linked to that, just sort of business strategy and understanding where the value is. So I think that if you, I've lost my train of thought here, apologies, but I think if you think about marketing, um, it's like anything in life, actually. Until you've seen something firsthand and the direct impact it can have on you, whether it's good or bad, you don't necessarily understand it. And so I can say, from that moment I walked into Clear Review, I, for the first time, really understood exactly what benefit marketing has. And I think if you think that most boards, most senior leadership teams just look at the numbers always starts with sales. And probably if the sales team are not able to hit the numbers they're looking for, a business, if they haven't had that big bang moment I've had, will actually then think, okay, how do we add to sales? Oh, let's add some marketing people in, because the marketing team can then support the sales team by finding new leads and it sort of be a service to that team. So I think I agree with your comment, I guess. And it's only when you have a really strong strategy, going back to my original point, that if you understand that actually both have equal importance, and maybe you guys think you have more importance, maybe I think I have more importance, but I think actually they both have incredibly important roles, only then can you get the best out of both. So it definitely should not be marketing are a service to sales. But I don't think either can live, going back to the original thing I said, I don't think you can really maximize a business potential without having a really strong sales strategy and an equally strong marketing strategy. And I think that's where a lot of new startups go wrong. They either get one right, get one wrong. I think if you get the marketing wrong, you're never really going to take off.
I think you hit on an interesting point, which is something we have in our notes, and it's they're not the same thing, but they can sometimes definitely feel like the same thing. Like we're both working on the same bit of the funnel. We're all trying to get new business to come through. Usually, depending on how fancy your marketing function is, maybe you have customer marketing, but they can feel like the same thing. But actually, neither of us can work without each other, because I, as a marketing person, I can get the leads in, I can get the demos in, but I can't do the sales bit. And then as a salesperson, of course, you can get the demos in through your own methodology, but at the end of the day, you'd rather probably not be doing that. You'd rather be doing the actual demos and the selling and the closing.
Yeah, agreed. And in my opinion, and maybe a question back to you guys, but my opinion is that marketing is incredibly broad, and you do an amazing variety of different things. And I think that's probably why there might be some of that stereotype that Emma talked about it being a service, because yes, you very much can contribute to the pipeline, but you also can do lots of other things around branding and my list is probably not as comprehensive as it should be because I'm not the expert. And I think that's why many people will probably think that marketing is can be more general when you have a really specific role in sales and growth.
Yeah, I agree. I think someone who I used to work with used to explain that, say, like, marketing, we line up the ball so that you guys can kick it in the back of the net. And I always think I think that speaks volumes, because I think it speaks about how we should be really closely aligned, like our goals are really the same. We kind of just do things in a different way. And I think that also speaks to like another thing that we wanted to talk about, which was like respecting each other's kind of professions. Because I think for so long, I think I've been to every single marketing conference or webinar I've ever been on. People talk about like, why do sales and marketing hate each other? Why are we pitted against each other? All of that kind of like natural assumption or kind of like forced cultural stereotype, if you like, that we are kind of like not working together. And I know like at Clear Review, we clearly did, and that's clearly to our success, our company's success. So we've experienced it firsthand when it does work properly. But I am interested in that, and I like both of you think really about why potentially you know, traditionally we're kind of like pitted against each other.
I think there's a natural friction that occurs when we're measured on the things that we're measured. So, for example, a lot of marketing teams are still measured on MQLs, for example. And what a marketing person deems an MQL might not be relevant to a salesperson at all. They might not be interested in that type of lead. They might want only demo requests or whatever level of lead they want to talk to is. So there's a natural friction there that gets set up if you don't do the metrics right, for a marketing person to be like, well, I'm sending you all of these leads. What are you doing with it? And then obviously the salesperson is on defense as if, you know, they don't know how to do their job. So it creates this tension, and then the salesperson turns around and says, well, the leads are shit and I'm not going to do anything with them. And then that kind of kicks off this sour taste then about everything. But I think the other thing is as well is marketing is, I think sales to a certain extent is as well, but marketing is one of those jobs where everyone has an opinion. So everyone gets exposed to marketing, therefore they think that they can make valid opinions and assumptions and critique on the work that marketing might be doing, whilst that's not quite true. You know, everyone can have a say, but it doesn't mean that, you know, a salesperson or anyone knows how to do our job better than us. So that sets up this second layer of, well, everyone knows how to do marketing, everyone can do marketing, so why don't you do it like this? And, you know, we have 100 reasons for why you shouldn't do it like this, but then we become defensive, and you see like the cycle continues, and then there's a mismatch with the lead expectations, and yeah, it all kind of goes a bit icky from there.
And just feeding off from that, as I'm listening, it almost feels like there is an element of sort of performance or people management maybe, and also empowerment. So like any top-down decision, it's not necessarily the best approach, and certainly not easy. So if you think about a sales target, quite often that will come from a higher level, which is completely normal, but the salespeople have often not been or not had the opportunity, let's say, to engage on what that should be and how we're going to hit it. So that can be daunting, and then a salesperson might be defensive or negative straight away. And actually, I think if a business doesn't fully understand the value of what a marketing team can bring, and you are just told what the target is, or maybe because everyone has an opinion on marketing, to use Ruta's words, maybe they are always suggesting things that you should be doing, and inevitably when they are your boss, that can then mean that you do some of those things. Maybe if there's not the right empowerment for marketing, that might be one of the areas where there continues to be a challenge, because you don't get the opportunity to be creative and make the impact that, for example, you two made it clear of you, but also my marketing director now at Advocitude Travel, again, also brilliant and brings great ideas, adds value, helps to create a bigger pipeline, is growing our brand, and doing that because he's been empowered to do that. And I think that's really important.
I totally agree. I think actually to add, one of the reasons why, you know, if you're thinking about how do I fix this, one of the reasons why things work so well at Clearview is because of the way that we created targets and created budgets. So we used to always start with, okay, what do we want to make in that year? Okay, what is it going to cost us, given all of the information we know, which is conversion rates of salespeople, how many demos we get in, how much we spent, what's our ROI, and then we would take that forward and then basically amend the budget. So it was never like, okay, we need to make 2 million and you have 50 grand to do it, or whatever. You know, it was always a process of using the data that we have and then planning in how we're actually going to do it before we ever said yes to a target. So that way sales knew what to expect from us, we knew what we needed to make for sales, and we knew what to expect from sales because sales had to hold up the end of the bargain when it comes to closing the deals, and they had to keep up the same kind of usually quality in closing that they had before. So it was never everything gets thrown out the window, all new numbers, and we're just going to have to hit it. It was always all based on this kind of process of, what do we want to hit? Okay, how much might that cost? How might we do it? How much of a difference that is to this year? And then marketing, can you do this for this amount of money? And then sales, hey, have we got enough people? Have we got enough resource to close this amount of deals if marketing do produce the leads up front? So it was done in like a very continuous and inclusive fashion. rather than just being told, the different teams being told what they need to be doing. At least that's my feeling of why it worked really well. I don't know, Jamie, if you have a similar situation at your current place.
It sounds simple when you talk about it. If you encourage people, if you give people the opportunity to input and add value and feel like they're engaged, you're going to get a better performance from it. I feel like I'm dropping back into our performance management days now. But actually, the result of that is everything that you've just said, Ruta, which is that if you hire a Ruta and you hire an Emma and other marketing people because they bring specialist knowledge, and so absolutely a business should engage with you to work out exactly how we're going to achieve the goals and what those goals should be. And we know that lots of businesses haven't matured in that way yet. And if I had to give one reason why, I think it's probably because people who are making decisions have never seen or never given their marketing team the opportunity to add that value.
Yeah, I agree. I think data-driven decision making is a huge part of this, and I think you've got to have a senior leadership team, going to be spicy now, that get that. And I think quite often you don't find that. I think you find people who, especially in startups, it's a passion project or it's their area of speciality or whatever it is, and they're not necessarily as clued into the data side of things as, say, like, your marketers are, or your CRO is. So making sure you listen to those people is key. And I also think there's another layer to add to this, which is to make sure that your sales and marketing team actually have data conversations together, and that is the driving force, like, behind all of the conversations that are happening at every level between sales and marketing. I think so often, it's the perception of, marketing come along and they'll just talk about their next bit of content or their next campaign. But I think where I've seen like real difference in conversations with salespeople, where I've had real closeness with sales teams, and that's not just at ClearView, that's been at some other businesses I've worked for too. It's where we've sat down and we've opened up the spreadsheets and we've talked through the numbers together. And I've said to them, like, these are the numbers, this is the reality, this is what we're working with. Like, how can I actually help you, or vice versa? And I think that really changes the kind of relationship you can have with a sales team. And you've got to help bring people along the journey who maybe aren't as, like, data focused, or who maybe haven't had these types of conversations before. But I think when you do that, you'll see like real change, and I think it's quite powerful, really. It's good for the relationships. You can actually have those conversations.
I think one of the easiest ways to potentially start aligning sales and marketing is what Emma said, and it's that we should speak the same language. And I feel like sales are much more numbers orientated traditionally than marketing was.
Yeah, I think it's definitely part of it. And I can probably talk about my existing experience. I came to Diversity Travel because they're a very established leading business travel agency for non-profits in the UK, and saw Europe, sort of mainland Europe, as a huge opportunity, but they didn't really work with many organisations. Yet there are thousands and thousands, and many of them looking for new travel agencies because of the pandemic, and their existing ones have closed down, or the service is not the same, all of those sort of things. And actually, the conundrum when I started and sat down with the business, and that includes marketing, is that very few organisations knew who we were, and also we didn't have a lot of data, so we didn't know who they were, and we wouldn't have been as successful as we have been. We've gone from sort of 10 customers to about 90 now in 12 to 15 months. We wouldn't have been able to do that if it had just been sales as a lone ranger, or without that sales strategy and just focusing on marketing. And it's only the blend of things where our awareness has been raised. And like many products and services, if you have a good service and you believe in it, and your customers believe in it, the hard bit is opening and starting those conversations. And then when you're in front of them, then more often than not, you're able to convert them because you're adding value to your customers' lives, whatever that might be. So I think my experience in the last, let's say, 15 months is completely aligned to what we're saying.
And the title of this podcast, so marketing should report into sales. Obviously, for the most part, Emma and I are against that because they're just two different things. And reporting into a salesperson as a marketer will definitely cause some interesting behaviors to come out in the marketing. There are teams that maybe should, and there are good, even, CROs that understand both sides, but I think that's much rarer. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's the norm, if you like, is that a CRO is someone who's got a sales background, not a marketing background. I think it's that goes back to that kind of respect and an understanding of marketing and the power of marketing, and they are prepared to, Jamie talked about it, empower and give autonomy to a marketing function. I think then you can have quite a successful kind of like CRO marketing relationships under that kind of like we talk about as that RevOps structure. If you do that and you do it properly, it should work and it should be good for everybody. I think the downside is where you have a CRO who does not understand marketing and thinks it's all just pretty pictures and a website and then doesn't have Google Ads. Oh yeah, it's all just PPC. Marketing is a blend, I always say, of science and like art. And I think quite often what happens is people don't understand the science bit, or as in like people outside of marketing don't understand the science bit. And if you mess with the science, then you have problems. So I always think, like if someone gets that it's both, I think you're okay and it could work. But where you have someone who's like, no, you just do pretty pictures and PPC, then then it's doomed to fail.
Traditionally, the title of this podcast completely makes sense, right? Because if you take all the stereotypes, most sales managers are probably not marketing experts and therefore don't fully understand the value, and that's why that doesn't utilize marketing teams or empower you. But being optimistic, and hopefully there's more people who have had similar experiences to me and therefore have the similar perspective to me in the sales world and sales leadership world. Maybe we can change that. Maybe in 5 years we can have a slightly different title, where if there are innovative CROs or other sales leaders, maybe marketing reporting into them can work, because as long as that leader, manager, whoever that person is, understands how to get the best out of your team, and you are empowered and have the support and the budget and all of those things to deliver against the objectives, then there's no reason it can't work. But that requires a real, and I think respect is the right word, but respect, understanding of both of the team's roles, because then it's about how can we blend them together. So you guys do what you guys do, and then the sales. And going back to your point, Ruta, I'm very passionate about outbound sales, but you're right, it has to be targeted. You have to understand who your sort of ideal customer profile is, because if you're sending the wrong messages to the wrong people, it gets expensive and time wasting quite quickly or immediately. And again, you need marketing support to build that strategy. It's not only sales or only marketing. In my opinion, at least.
Yeah, when you've got a good leader, that makes all the difference, and I think that's it. I guess what we're talking about is experiences where potentially there's not someone who gets both sides. So yeah, it'd be interesting as well to see what happens, like, as I suppose, I guess I'm going to say like our generation of marketers, and I don't mean by age, but I just mean our kind of like group of marketers who are more revenue focused. Yeah, like where we all end up. Will we all end up as CMOs, or will we all end up as CROs? Like, will we all be driven to control all the purse strings? I don't know.
The one point that we haven't discussed is why this has happened as a thing, which I guess we maybe should have started with at the beginning. I don't want to say, shit marketing teams, but there are marketing teams that aren't revenue focused, aren't revenue delivering. When the business deems them to be, too far outside of that, they think that pushing them into the sales function will help them become revenue focused. And I think if that's your solution, something went wrong, because that's not what should be happening. So I think that's why there's been this huge move to push marketing into sales, is that if they're underperforming or they're not concentrating on revenue, that's how you're going to get them there. But again, they're two different things, and if they're not revenue focused, then it's a business problem. You know, you never set them up to be revenue focused, or you didn't hire the right people for the team to be doing that. It's not going to get fixed by just putting them into sales and expecting them to now, you know, have a target and that be how they work.
Well, yeah, because it goes back to what Jamie was saying earlier on, which is that then if that does happen and that's the reason why they've been asked to report into sales, then the assumption is that that marketing team then serves sales, and then what happens is, do you know what people make, Ruta? This will make your like blood boil. They end up making product brochures, don't they?
Oh yes, a good old product brochure.
Good old product brochures, because we need those in 2022. It's not like we're blaming marketing teams who aren't revenue focused and who aren't digitally savvy and all of that kind of stuff. I don't think it's fair to blame people, even though our podcast is called Blame It On Us anyway, but you know what I mean. I think it is more about being set up to fail in the first instance, and then like after that they'll just be expected to serve sales, and then you still won't see the performance you want to see out of your marketing team.
The exceptions, which have grown over time, have been where people have recruited brilliantly. So I think I read something from Stephen Bartlett yesterday where he said that actually the job of a leader, I can't remember if it's the job of a leader or the job of a CEO, is basically a recruitment company, because if you can recruit really good people that fit into the culture and bring value, then that's going to make much more difference than almost anything else you do. So even if you maybe have a business that has never utilised, going back to marketing, a marketing function in the past and all of the opportunity that brings, actually if they then happen to hire some absolute marketing whizzes like a Ruta or an Emma and many others, suddenly maybe that problem disappears, because you then have the business then has that big bang moment where they think, oh my gosh, look how great, look at all these ideas that we never thought about, look how much it's contributing to the business, look how we're doing things in a different way. So I think recruitment is a slight side point, but if you can recruit the right person in any role, not just marketing or sales or anywhere else, that can really transform a business.
People are going to think we've paid Jamie to like say that we're good marketers, because you've just been very complimentary, but we have not paid Jamie.
Invoice is right here.
We didn't pay Jamie, but Jamie knows, because what was it, Ruta, 98% of our leads at Clearview were inbound, so
it was actually 100% when I arrived. So
is there any leaving notes you would like to say either to marketing people or to salespeople when it comes to working together and finding harmony?
I'm going to throw one out there. I think every salesperson should read at least one modern marketing book, if not to suddenly be a marketing guru, but just to take 2 or 3 things that you can really, I guess, live with and understand moving forward. I think that's something for me, because when I went to work, I had been in travel, I moved to performance management. They're vastly different. The only way I could really start to understand the other side was to read some books. So I think every salesperson should read a marketing book, and maybe, I'm going to throw it out there, maybe every marketing person should read at least one modern sales book as well. The caveat being there's so many now, it's difficult to choose one, but there's many out there that are very, very good. Any marketing books I should read and ask for Christmas, guys?
I always recommend, and it's not really a marketing book or a sales book, it's called The Power of Moments. And the reason I think it's so important is because it's talking about how to create moments that last and that matter to your clients. And I think that's important for all of us. Doesn't matter whether you're sales, marketing or CS, that's the ultimate goal, is that we're there to deliver brilliant customer experiences. So I would recommend that one to everyone. Thanks for listening to this episode of Blame It On Marketing with the amazing Jamie. I should have said the zesty Jaime De Freitas. We'll be around for the next one, so tune back in to Blame It On Marketing soon.